Scouting the mock drafts on today's episode of Locked On 49ers. Been a lot of safety prospects. It's a need for the San Francisco 49ers being projected in that round 3 area. So we're going to go through some of these prospects. Do we think they're round 3 guys? Do we think the Niners should trade up for them? Do we think they're more round 5, even round 7, or shouldn't even be on the 49ers draft board on today's Locked On 49ers?
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thanks everybody for giving us those prospects that you want us to take a look out and showing us the mock drafts that have different prospects in different places. So instead of just looking at, pick 99, 101, 102 in some of the mock drafts, and we'll still do some of those scouting the mocks episodes, we just want to kind of dive into some of the safety prospects we've been seeing in these areas. And the 4 guys we're going to focus on today's program: Daniel Scott out of Cal, Jammie Robinson from Florida State, Ronnie Hickman from Ohio State, and J.L. Skinner from Boise State. If these might be fits for the San Francisco 49ers in the 2023 draft. Before we get to those prospects, Croc, did you see the high-resolution, slow-motion video of Trey Lance throwing footballs, getting some work in? Maybe the biggest part of the story, that he's working out with one Patrick Mahomes.
That's how you do it, man. That's how you do it. When you're around people, and I have one of my buddies, and he's really successful at what he's doing. And being around successful people, just kind of seeing how they move, how they work, how their minds work, picking their brains, I don't think there's any better experience that you can gain than working with people like that. So you see Trey Lance working with Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he has to go out and, do a job in the next month or so when they report for OTAs. But ultimately, it really helps to just be next to him, just see how he's throwing the ball, see how he moves, see how he works. How does the ball come out of his hands? What's his thought process behind some of the things he does? And just having those type of conversations, which I bet, if I had to guess, they didn't just work out one day, but they've been there, 2-3 days or so, really kind of just working with each other. And I think for Trey Lance, a young guy who's still, again, we talk so much about all the things that he needs to experience. I think this is a really good thing for him.
Big offseason for Trey Lance. Definitely rooting for him. And I am expecting some big things. And I'm expecting a big step for Trey Lance. And the 2 big things to take away from his workouts recently are, I love it. Go. If you want to be as good as you can be, go work out with the best people that exist doing the thing you're trying to do. And Patrick Mahomes is absolutely that. Take whatever you can from him. And just the fact that he's working out is a good sign, and he'll be ready, it looks like, for OTAs and be QB1, it looks like, for the 49ers throughout the offseason, and, with a little Sam Darnold over his shoulder. But one thing, Croc, I am not going to do, and we're not going to go very long here on Trey Lance, because the thing I'm not going to do is try to break down what his release looks like, if he looks like he's going to be good, if he's changed anything, just from seeing a clip of him throwing zoomed in slow motion. That's definitely not something I'm going to do. We talk about it with our prospects. People send us highlights, and like, don't watch the highlights. If you watched highlights of my golf round yesterday, you might think I'm a pretty good golfer, but if you followed me and watched the whole round, you would know that I'm garbage. So highlight tapes is not what you want to watch, and you definitely don't want to watch one throw zoomed in slow motion and to try to take anything big from it. So I'm definitely not going to do that.
Not take anything away from it, and everything is different when the live bullets are flying. But I will say, I did just take a peek. See, where's that ball dropped to? And it wasn't below or to his waist. So I don't know if that's something that he's worked on as of late once he got, healthy enough to really throw. I don't know if that's something that he's been, working on in the offseason or putting the emphasis on it. But it was like, oh, okay. It was what? I mean, dude's an NFL quarterback.
Right.
You're supposed to be able to throw a ball live on the air.
And it's one throw. Who knows what he's working on? Is it something that he's going to keep, that he's even doing right there in that throw? You don't know. But anyway, Trey Lance throwing
football. Good to see him working out. I mean, a lot of the conversation in the national media is that 49ers don't have a healthy quarterback right now, and Trey Lance is an afterthought. And it's like, well, no. Look, I am healthy. I'm working out. I'm throwing with Patrick Mahomes, and I'm trying to improve. So 22 years old. He'd still be like the youngest quarterback in the NFL right now. I think
he
he
threw
is.
at least one spiral this week. I can confidently say that.
Is he the youngest quarterback in the NFL right now?
No. He got passed up last year, I believe, and he's
because all the quarterbacks that got drafted were older than him last year.
As far as quarterbacks go, for sure, I know that Richardson, Bryce Young, and C.J. Stroud, all younger. Will Levis, I think, is right around the same age.
No, I'm talking about last year.
But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if anybody passed him up from last year's class because he was obviously the youngest from the year before. And if the entire class was older, I know it was an older class of quarterbacks. Then he's still the youngest. Yeah, he's only 22.
Yeah, I think he currently is the youngest NFL quarterback. So I mean which is wild, right, for somebody who's been in the league for 2 years, but very little experience. So man, I usually have a lot of excitement for the offseason just to kind of see how things look, but I am really excited to just see how does Trey Lance look.
Where's he carry him? How does he carry himself? What does he look like? He's starting to look like a grown man, right? Because he was a young dude. We saw this with Alex Smith, came in at 20 years old, and he was just kind of a kid, and it took him a while. And so I want to see what he looks like. Does this look like a man that's in control of a group of other men, right? Because that's what you got to be as an NFL quarterback. J.L. Skinner is a man. Croc, let's start there with the Boise State safety. I believe you caught glimpses of him at the Senior Bowl. 6 foot, almost 6'4" is J.L. Skinner out of Boise State. 209 pounds. Now, he hasn't tested, which is a big key for his draft stock. So who knows, maybe that makes him available where he wouldn't have been for the 49ers because he's dealing with a pec injury, I believe. Didn't work out at the combine, didn't work out at Boise's pro day. So we don't have any testing numbers either. What did you see from Skinner on the field? Does he have some speed? Do you think he might test well? Do you think he might be a fit for the 49ers?
First, let's talk about what I didn't see. All right. I didn't see them put him in a situation at the Senior Bowl in an area where he would be like uncomfortable. A lot of what they did was stuff that I felt like, well, I know he can do that. Drop him down the box, have him play some zone type stuff, hook curl type stuff. He's a very long and rangy defender with good athleticism. So those are the type of things where it was like, well, I expect to see that. I wanted to see him put in more like, my phone talking to me. Could you please say that again? But I wanted to see him in more like man situations where he's a little uncomfortable and just see how does he naturally react to that. If you go back a year ago, there was a guy by the name of Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. And what Baylor did with Petrie, they played him, he was listed as a safety, but he played a lot of this like nickel kind of hybrid position. And the Baylor defense kind of was cheating a little bit because all they had him do was kind of wall off receivers. And then if they try to cross his face, he'd run with them. If they try to run away from him, he'd kind of just pass it off. So he had a really easy job. And I want to see him like, man, let me see the pure coverage skills. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and they're like, hey, you're playing man on the outside. You're playing man in the slot. You got to really see him work and do some things that you didn't quite get to see on a consistent basis at Baylor. Well, with Skinner, it almost was like, hey, you're comfortable doing this, so these are the things we're going to do with you all week. And I would have liked to see them challenge him a little bit more.
The 49ers need more free safety than strong safety with Talanoa Hufanga. So that's one of the things with Skinner is like, I got to know this guy can play some single high when necessary. He's got the range to play from deep, and he can do that interchange and maybe even man up with guys at times in the slot, like the 49ers like to use their safeties. And we'll see if Steve Wilks, utilizes his safeties a little bit differently than the 49ers have with the D'Amico Ryans. But I do have some questions there. And I think it has to be the right safety prospect, and there has to be some value involved. So do you feel like Skinner's a third-round guy? And the other thing with the safety class, Croc, I'm watching these safeties. I'm looking at where they're projected to go. Nobody knows. This is one of the weirdest safety classes I can remember. I have no idea who's going to be there in the third round. I have no idea who's going to be there in the fifth round. This is a tough class to wrap my head around, and there's not like headliners in this class either, although there's some depth and some really good players.
I know. I mean, we go back a few years ago, and I think Juan Thornhill now was a free agent. I don't know where he signed with, but I remember Juan Thornhill, and I'm pounding the table for Juan Thornhill, and there were some other safeties in that class, Nasir Adderley, right? Like where it was just like, hey, there's some guys in this group. I think the safety that went out of Maryland to the Green Bay Packers, Savage, no,
Yeah, Darnell Savage.
Right? Like it was a group where it was just like, man. Then you go back, maybe a year or so prior to that, and you had the Derwin James and Minka Fitzpatrick, and there were just like all these safeties, right? And this year, it's kind of like, last year it was like Kyle Hamilton, and there were a few others that I like, Lewis Seen, but this year it's like, man, who is the guy? And I think we're still trying to find that out right now. But if you are the 49ers, someone who feels like, man, maybe we can kind of sneak and get a guy in the third round, right? I think we really liked a couple guys last year around that range. Mm-hmm. Nick Cross, the kid out of Penn State as well, the safety that ended up going to the Bears. Yeah, Brisker, and doing a really good job. He went second round. But
Illinois safety as well, who he didn't blow me away athletically, but he got his hands on so many footballs, ended up being awesome. I think he was early 4th round pick for or maybe really late 3rd, or around where that 49ers late 3rd pick was. I think early 4th round though. Went to the Lions, had an awesome rookie year, and kept getting his hands on the football. So those ball skills, those instincts, I mean, that travels, right? And sometimes 40 times are overrated. So maybe some of these guys that didn't work out, it doesn't really matter. If they can play, they can play. For
a guy like Skinner, I do believe that, when you watch Boise State, he did stand out. Where it was just like, who is this 6'4", 220-pound safety?
Right.
And for whatever he was doing that made him pop and stand out, I think that's something that's really going to help him throughout this process. And you talked about him not running. Maybe that'll help him kind of slide a little bit. I think it might actually help the other way. Not knowing exactly what his 40 time is, but just purely having to go off of only the film and what you think of that. I think it kind of helps that, because you might even say, well, he looks like he's a 4.58 guy, a 4.6, but you'd rather just go off of, okay, he looks like this, as opposed to somebody who you think is going to be that, then runs a 4.73, then you're going to be like, oh, that's a little ugly. It didn't hurt Kyle Hamilton as much last year.
Right, yeah, it didn't hurt. Although he showed some stiffness in coverage as a rookie as well, so it might hurt his career. Or the other side of that too, if he runs 4.4s because he's got these long legs and you don't see any agilities, but you think he plays 4.6, gets in the league, like, oh, but he's got speed, he's got range that you can't tell, because of the strides. Gets in the league and still plays like he's 4.6. Like, we're hoping to get the 4.4 guy. So let's go by the tape.
Go by the tape, which the scouts will do. For the people rising and falling in draft, I think that's more of a social media thing.
It's a media thing for sure.
I don't think that the NFL, the NFL teams, whatever their final grades are done already before the combine. That's just a chance for them to meet with them and see them in person. But how they feel about guys, unless a guy just bombs in the interview, their film evaluation and their grades on the players, that stuff is done. Stuff is done.
And the film is the most important thing. And when it comes to prospects moving around draft boards right now, if you're moving on a draft board, that's bad, because that means you're probably going down, because you're getting taken off the board, because you're getting arrested or whatever, and teams are not sure about you, bombing interviews, and they're like, we don't like this guy so much, maybe we're going to move him around.
So a guy like Kyle Hamilton, where he goes out and ran, pro day, combine, I think he actually ran faster in the the high 4.5, like 4.59, when people thought he might be like low 4.4s.
Yeah.
And then his pro day, he ran like 4.73. Well, NFL scouts are like, look, we don't care, because his film is terrific and we love this film. So while everybody else was panicking and saying, dang, how do you take this guy high now after he runs a 4.7 at the safety position? NFL is like, well, our film evaluation and our grades on him says first round. And what do you know? He goes, top half of the first round. So.
And hey, so there you go. I think what Croc's saying is the Niners might be able to get their version of Hamilton, but in the 3rd round this year in J.L. Skinner out of Boise State. All right, some more prospects to get into here. Daniel Scott from Cal next, Jammie Robinson of Florida State, and Ronnie Hickman from Ohio State next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. NBA playoffs almost here. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Love the interface. And bet on everything. Money line, point scores, threes drained, draft props, which are maybe my favorite thing to bet on all year long. And, of course, Major League Baseball every day all summer. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Next up on the list, Croc, is Daniel Scott out of Cal. And, man, he put on a display at the Combine. Do you see it's easy to see the size and the height and weight. Did you see the speed? Did you see the athleticism on tape that he displayed at the Combine?
I saw nothing.
Oh, no.
I cut on the film, and my first thought was, why does Peacock have me watching this guy? All right. And then my second thought was, all right, find something that you like. And it was really hard to find anything that I like. Some of the questions that I was asking myself while watching them, where's the instincts, right? You cut on safety's film. We threw out a bunch of names in the last segment, right? Guys where you just see these instincts. And when you're seeing instincts, it's guys making plays, flying around, breaking up balls, getting interceptions, tackles for loss. You're just seeing all these things that pop off because they're reading something, they're reacting, they're flying in, they're confident with what they're seeing. And when I was watching Scott, it was just like, he's just kind of out there. Now, I only watched 2 games, all 22, so I get to see everything he's doing, right? But it was just like, 2 high safety, kind of just out here. Single high safety, kind of just out here. Like, okay, I'm down in the flats, kind of a hook curl player. Guy catches a 6-yard pass, I just push him out of bounds. And it's like, where's the risk taking? Where is the I'm flying in, I'm hitting guys, I'm a missile, I'm celebrating with my teammates. Like, I was just, again, 2 games, small sample size. The NFL scouts have watched probably 2-3 seasons of them, but I'm trying to find, what do I like about him? And I didn't go and look at his pro day number or combine numbers or anything like that. So I have no idea how tall he is, the height, weight, the speed. I don't know any of that. All I know is I saw a player that I didn't really get a feel at all for anything that he did positive. Now, that's not saying that it was bad. All right, I didn't see bad film. I didn't see a guy not having, he's not in the wrong spot, or he's blowing assignments, blowing coverages. I didn't see that either. I just didn't see anything that was like, oh, this is why I really like this guy, because this jumped off the charts, or man, he did this exceptionally well. In the 2 games that I watched, I didn't see those things pop off the screen. So I will continue to watch, and I always preface that, like, I will continue to watch these guys. There is a reason why Peacock is making me watch them. I just don't know why yet.
So he's been mocked to the 49ers in the late 3rd round. I've also seen mock drafts with him later on day 3 to the 49ers. And he's been someone that people have been asking about. And he's a local, product out of Cal. So I think that helps, fans kind of, rally around the local college prospects.
Do you have his stats pulled up? What are his stats? Like, what is...
I don't have his necessarily his tackle.
Or just interception total, pass breakups. Like, those are things I care about most.
I don't have those up, but I will tell you this. The word safe is in his position title, right? Safety. And he's kind of safe with the way he plays. In all the games I watched, I didn't see any impact collisions. I didn't see any big mistakes. I didn't see him, outrunning guys to the football. Remember when we watched Alabama linebacker To'o last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was? And I was like, man, he lets people beat him to the ball too much. And I got that vibe with Daniel Scott too, where, I want to see the dog. And I want to see the guy who gets there first and, is creating plays, creating turnovers. And you can see how he's athletic, but I don't know if I saw what he did at the Combine.
What do you do at the Combine?
This is what he did at the Combine. 6 feet 1, 208 pounds. He ran a 4.45 with a 1.55 10-yard split, both really fast. 39.5-inch vertical jump, 10.8 broad jump, both at the top of the safety class, 6.75 3-cone, 4.17 20-yard shuttle, both at the top of the safety class, and 22 bench press reps, which is at the top of the safety class. So it was at or near the very top of every single testing, every single test they gave Daniel Scott at the Combine and all the safeties at the Combine. He was at the top.
So again, based off of 2 games, ladies and gentlemen, 2 games. If I were saying I really like him, maybe I can get him to trust his athletic ability more, to be more instinctual on the field to like make those plays. Because when you see these guys that are making plays, and there's a reason why he's being mocked later as opposed to some of these guys we've seen get drafted, top first 2 rounds. Right? Like, in my head goes to like Minka Fitzpatrick, Derwin James. You just see the plays that they make, right? Like just playmaker, maybe you can teach him some of these things because one thing I don't know, right? I just watched the film. I don't talk to anybody from Cal. Maybe they told him, keep everything in front of you. Like think of Jimmy Ward. A lot of what he's talked about with how, the 49ers tell him how to play. It's just keep it in front of you. Not letting him freelance to where maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult to make plays. Now, I watched Talanoa Hufanga, and he tends to be more of a risk taker, and for better or for worse. And then we saw that, right? You love the reasons why he takes risk when you see it work out, and that's why he was, first team All-Pro or second team All-Pro, whatever he was. But then you also see, like, he blew a coverage, he blew a just being a little bit too aggressive. So you kind of take both of them, but I feel like, hey, I want the guy, let me tell you to tone it back down a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me tell you to scale back a little bit on how aggressive you are. I don't want to have to say, dude, can you be more aggressive? Or can I teach you to be more aggressive? Because I think your mind just works that way. And you might always just be a really safe player. And, hey, with his testing numbers, good special teamer, 8-year NFL pro. All right. But I want the guy, like, can I get you to make plays? Because that's what the 49ers ultimately going to need.
And here's the other thing: after he's an 8-year NFL pro, he'll be 33 years old because he's one of the super seniors with the extra COVID years, 6 years of college experience. He's going to be turning 25 at some point this season. Currently 24 years old. Do have some stats. The last 2 seasons, 167 tackles and 6 interceptions over the last 2 seasons.
So he made some plays
and some balls, and it looked like he had some ball skills. So he does display some things on tape, but I didn't get super excited watching him like, oh man, this guy's making plays on the back end. He was just kind of but that, hey, Tayshaun Gibson was awesome for the 49ers last year, and he kind of did the same thing. He was in the right place a lot of times, got his hands on footballs, and maybe that's all you need back there. So, but in the end, I saw someone I thought would probably be more of a 5th round prospect than a 3rd round prospect to me.
Yeah, when it comes to Gibson, we're going to look at the overall numbers and be like, man, haven't had a safety getting picks like that, and since Deshaun Goldson, right? Goldson's out there flying around. Let's go, Hawk. All right, but haven't had a safety getting picks like that since Goldson. And then you look at some of the picks, and it's like ball went through Hufunga's hands, and look who's right behind him, Deshaun Gibson. Quarterback gets hit while throwing the ball. Ball's fluttering in the air. Look who's standing right there to get the pick. Tayshaun Gibson, right? So like you kind of need like that type of guy. Now there's also the forced takeaway by Gibson where he undercut a route, dove against the Chiefs, tried to catch the pick from Mahomes, it hit off his chest, but it bounced up, and then Hufanga picked it off, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand with just guys that are kind of forcing takeaways, and I love safeties that do that. I don't know what Cal's scheme is, and if they were asking their guys to be more aggressive, he definitely played soft, and if that was their goal, then he did a great job of that. I did not see the 6 interceptions. I don't watch highlights, so I have to try to maybe filter through and find those. But I want what's consistent. Like, who is he outside those plays? And some of the other guys, again, I talked about Juan Thornhill. It only took one game. Like, you watch a game, and you're like, this guy's a gamer. This guy is around the ball. He's flying around. Even if he doesn't get a pick, you just see it, right? And with Scott, I haven't seen it quite yet, but I'm intrigued by the testing numbers. I'm intrigued by the size, and I am intrigued enough to continue to watch more film on him.
Next, Jammie Robinson out of Florida State and Ronnie Hickman. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. For your second listen, make sure you check out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Myself and former NFL scout Matt Williamson coming at you daily, talking about everything going on in the NFL. And make sure you're subscribed up to the brand new YouTube channel for Peacock and Williamson. Also, check out the latest on the network, Locked On NFL Scouting with Draft Dudes, Kyle Krabs, and Joe Marino. All these pods you can find Monday through Friday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So Jammie Robinson, and Croc, I know you didn't get to watch much of him, and I did, and it was really stark watching Daniel Scott and Jammie Robinson back-to-back. Jammie Robinson was the opposite of Daniel Scott. He was just like, You know what I mean?
I like that. I like it. Give me that guy.
Trying to rip the ball out every play, but not a body beautiful, not 6'1", 200 pounds, not 4.4 speed or anything like that. I ended up seeing a guy that I think is probably more of a nickel maybe than a safety. He's 5'11", 5'10 and a half, 190 pounds. I believe at the combine he ran a 4.59. Let me double check on that. 4.59 in the 40.
That's kind of small because when you started listing out where you thought he might play, you talked about his height and his weight. Immediately, this guy last year, I'm going to test you. 5'11", 190-ish, safety, played a lot in the nickel in college, but it was like he's listed as a safety. You know where I'm going with this?
I think you already brought him up in this podcast, didn't you?
I have not yet, but Daxton Hill.
Oh,
Dax Hill from out of Michigan. 4.3. But he ran 4.3. So that's the thing where I'm like, 5'11", okay. 190, okay, Dax Hill, nickel, Dax Hill. Then you're like 4.59. I'm like, ooh, that is not Dax Hill.
Jammie Robinson's a rocked up dude though, for being kind of small. He's strong. Actually, he's one of the few safeties that bested Daniel Scott's bench press. He had 23, one more bench press rep than Daniel Scott. Trey Dean out of Florida, who we've already talked about on this podcast, he had 25 bench press reps. This is the most of all the safeties at the combine.
I wonder how many I could do right now because I was repping 225 10 times today. I did put up 315 today, but
look at Croc go.
Getting
ready for his combine.
196, 197. Where do I fit in with this group?
You'd be right in this group. I think we'd be talking about you as a day 3 guy, Croc. I think you get drafted higher now than when you were 22 years old.
Right. I was playing the wrong position. They're like, corner, I don't know, a safety. Okay.
With pure hands, ball skills,
pure.
Short arms, 29 and 5/8 inch arms. So I think he might get pigeonholed in the slot, and with just because of his top end speed. But I like him in the slot. I like him around the football. I like the way he breaks on the ball. I like the way the mentality he plays with, and he was a fun player to watch. But then in the end, I'm like, yeah, if I want a guy who's playing single high safety, then he's just probably not the guy. But now I know why a lot of people were really excited and wanted us to watch Jammie Robinson out of Florida State.
And I also want to say too, because we brought up Daxton Hill and some of the things that you said, just kind of on how Robertson would play. Dax Hill, who I was just like, he's going to be a nickel in the league. He played, I want to say, a lot of safety. Like, they did play him at the safety position, a guy who you just thought, he'd be plug and play in that nickel spot. But I think he did do some of the nickel stuff as well. But, I mean, maybe we could do something like that with this FSU kid. I mean, shoes. Jimmy Ward, right? I mean, I keep talking about Daxton Hill, but Jimmy Ward, 5'11", 190-something. Where did Jimmy Ward play in college? He played, it was like a quarters safety, so there's kind of like a lot of vertically matching coverages that he played from a safety spot, so almost like a nickel, and the 49ers were like, we're going to draft you to play nickel, and then he kind of obviously bounced around. But I don't remember. I feel like Ward ran a little better than that. And that's why he was a first-round pick and not projected third.
I believe Ward was 4.4 flat.
Ooh,
or maybe even 4.39. He blazed. I think that really helped him go at the end of the first round, was just because of how great he worked out. I'll look that up in a second. Yeah. But Jammie Robinson does not work out that, and he doesn't look like he has great top-end speed either, which is why I'm a little bit worried about him in the back end of the defense. So I'd want him more at strong safety, or I'd want him in the slot. I'd want him a little bit more in the box, I think. But fun player to watch, and I think probably a player that a lot of teams are going to like, because he's got that dog in him and they're going to like that about him. But I don't think he goes very high. And I do think he's probably a day 3 guy because of that, because, is he a slot? Is he a safety? Is he a tweener where he's not really ends up being great at either? Or is he a player that you're like, oh man, you should have thrown out the measurables on this guy, because he's just a ball player and he has a, that 8-year career, and he's a great special teamer and he works his way in and can play both slot and safety. So we'll see what he ends up being. I probably would not throw down. I think he's probably worth a late 3rd round pick where the 49ers are, but I think there might be players I'll like more than the Jammie Robinson right there. But I would love to take a chance on him if he's still there in the 5th round for sure, because I think he's the type of player you'd want to bring into the organization.
Yeah, the speed at the size he is, that speed might throw things off just a little bit.
Yeah, short arms. He's not big and he doesn't have long speed. You just worry about anything down the field at all if he's going to have problems there. And he wasn't really great in those situations in college either.
What were the numbers? And we'll have to pull them up. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, because that was kind of that guy, right? Like he was a tweener at Florida, and he's like, okay, nickel safety. And then you see what he's doing in the league, where he's still kind of this hybrid guy, but he's making a ton of plays. I don't remember what his measurements were coming out of Florida. You're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. His measurements were good. He was pretty prototype for a safety. I think that he was low 4.5, maybe 4.5 flat ish. I think the knock on him was, he probably won't stick at outside corner, so maybe he's a safety, and I think that knocked him down a little bit. And I think some teams liked and some teams didn't like his attitude as well. But he was 6 feet, 200 pounds. 4.5 flat. I think his numbers were pretty solid at the combine. I can pull them up right now. In fact, I'm looking at. No, I'm not looking at it. I'll find it in a second for CJ Gardner-Johnson. But he had a little bit more length. He had a little bit more speed, and you could tell he was going to be somebody that could line up in a lot of spots. At least I did. I liked him a lot. So yeah, here we go. Combine. 4.48 in the 44. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 5'11", 210 pounds.
So I think the weird thing for him was, why was he available when he got drafted? Now, it was weird at the time. So the fact that I think last year led the NFL in interceptions, or was top or tied for the most in the league. I think he had 6 and he missed games. The fact that he's been a good NFL defensive back. I mean, it was like it was really weird that he slipped. And a lot of times when that happens, it's like, they know something we don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure that had to be because there's no business with them falling to the top of the 4th round. But there was some talk that he would be maybe a late one at one point in the process. But then once he started falling out of 2nd, 3rd round, it's like, what the heck's going on? So yeah, I think there's, he's an interesting cat. And I think that was probably the biggest part of it with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, because the tape was good. He knew he could play. And I thought he was a perfect fit at free safety.
They said he hates coaches. So I don't know.
He hates everybody. I think he just likes, he's just one of those guys that likes conflict. He gives the waiter a rough time, which always drives me crazy. I would love to go out to dinner with every prospect and see how they act at dinner, and I think you can learn a lot. I think that's why coaches love to go out with dinner with guys. You learn a little bit about them. They relax.
I think you got to set them up
when they don't have to treat them great.
You have to. It can't be with the team. Like, I need to see how you are, and I need to have like a little disguise on, and just kind of like, have a PI on him, telling him, and just like, when he goes to this restaurant,
and a little fake mustache, and you got your hat down, and you're just watching him interact when he doesn't think he's being watched.
Yeah, that's what I'm sure that would be my main philosophy. Let me follow these guys with, and just so they don't know. But I want to see how do you act? Like, how are you? The real you. Because you'll see real quick when guys are around their buddies and the women, you'll find out real quick.
We talked to Croc about building our own scouting staff if we got gifted an NFL team and we were in control. I think that's one of the things I would do, is kind of do things a little bit differently, and I think some teams already do that. Is I would have our main office be the hub. You've got tape on all these guys. I think the scouting decisions would be made more there. We would go watch players in person too, but I think the area scouts, the people that are around the universities, I mean, might as well hire a private investigator as much as you'd be hiring an area scout for most of these prospects.
Oh yeah, I'd have one in every area.
Mm-hmm. Last one, Croc, is Ronnie Hickman out of Ohio State. Another player.
The Ohio State
University. We do not have any testing numbers for him either. So 2 of these prospects, Skinner and Hickman, did not work out at the combine and have injuries that kept them from working out at the pro day. For Skinner, it's a pec injury. And for Hickman, that we're going to talk about now, it was a hip injury. So he's not working out, which worries me because speed is the thing I was worried about with him. And I wanted to see him run in workouts. Did you see a problem with speed with Hickman like I did, Croc?
I did not see a problem with speed. There wasn't anything where I'm just like, oh man, can he run vertically? Now, the way they had him playing, almost like Scott, a little safe-ish, but I thought that there was more of a sense of urgency for him to be around the ball. And that jumped out to me right away, where it's just like, all right, yes, I'm single high, but the ball is going that way. I am gunning, trying to get to the ball. Like, I want to get to the ball. You made some dog noises with Robertson.
Jammie Robinson.
Yeah, you were like, right. Like that's what it reminded me of. Like, just somebody, I just want to get to the ball. And he was always kind of close or around or trying to figure that out, how to get there. When he was forced to tackle, I thought he tackled well. He did miss a tackle in space. And those are tough. I mean, when you have a guy and he just has a two-way go. Now, again, guys, your guys is, guys listening, your Pop Warner tape, your high school tape or whatever, and you're just making all these great open field tackles. That's whatever. You start getting to like SEC ball, Big Ten ball, and you're asked to like really tackle guys in space. It is hard. It's hard, right? And he got twice that I saw in a couple games that I watched. But definitely, when you talk about the motor and just relentlessness to try to get to the ball, he was definitely more of a single high guy. They would disguise some things. He'd get back to the middle. He had a really nice pedal. I really like that. They did ask him to play man coverage a few times on either like tight ends. And I thought he did a really good job there. Each time that I saw him in man coverage covering the tight end, there was zero separation. It wasn't something I saw often, but I saw it enough to where it's like, hey, this is a trend. I've seen about 4 or 5 reps now with him in man coverage, and each time the tight end is locked. Unless the quarterback just throws the most perfect ball to a location where he can't fight through the tight end to break up a pass. So more times than not, he was good there in coverage. It was a lot of single high type stuff, but he had a nice high type pedal. I think if you're looking at what the 49ers have done, which is play a lot more quarters, they definitely think he's a guy that can match guys vertically in quarters and feel comfortable doing that. But if you feel like he can't run, that is one thing that can really get you, because you have to be confident. And when you're playing quarters, one thing about Hufanga, and we saw him make some plays doing this, you almost end up on an island at times at that safety position. If you go back, Monday Night Football, 49ers played against the Green Bay Packers, and Valdez-Scantling got Marcel Harris in open field, just ran right by him for a touchdown, right? And it's really easy to kind of get caught flat-footed thinking like, oh, he's not going to go vert. He's not going to go vert. Then it's like, I'm going vert. And there's like nothing you can do at that point. You will get caught sometimes in that position. But if you're very confident with what you're seeing, which I think a lot of times Talanoa Hufanga was, again, when he just blew a coverage, and he's like nowhere near it. But when he was confident and he's back there and he doesn't blow the coverage, he was very aggressive with how he covered a lot of guys, even on what looked like might be vertically pushing routes. That near interception that I talked about earlier, that Tishawn Gibson ended up being in the right spot and picking it off. You watch how Hufanga, that might have been one of the most impressive plays, if not the most impressive play that I saw from a 49er defender all year long. He is in the slot, matched up, basically man-to-man on Tyler Lockett, who has a two-way go out of the slot on him. No help over the top, no nothing. And he jumped the route. I cannot express how difficult that is to do. And I was so shocked by that. But that just shows the kind of confidence that he has in his ability. If you are a guy that you question their speed, if they can play with that type of confidence, then they can be good at safety for the 49ers, even if it's maybe not quite what they did a whole lot in college, but converting more to a cover 4 quarters type defense.
With Hickman, you mentioned something that I also saw was he was pretty good in man with bigger tight ends, and he has a nice size. And he was a big-time recruit, I learned as well, looking up and researching Hickman here. He's a big-time recruit at Ohio State. Usually you are, but he was like a big get for them. 6 feet and 1/2, 203 pounds, long arms. He looks the part for sure. And he looked pretty good in man coverage at times. And so maybe it's not an athleticism thing, but maybe it's an anticipation thing, because when he was off with guys and off, against the run, he would kind of like take bad angles and kind of be out of place and end up chasing a running back where he should have been over the top of him and cutting off an angle. So maybe it's not a speed thing. And maybe it's just more of an anticipation thing. And I did see him, which was part of the reason why he missed some tackles that I saw. And another time put a big hit on a guy was because he's ducking his head and he's looking at the ground instead of looking at his target. And so, he made one big hit, but not bringing his hands to wrap up because he's got his head down. And then another play puts his head down and then he misses the tackle because he's looking at the ground and he's not looking at his target. So I did notice a tendency for him to dip his head down and maybe kind of look for a knockout more so than just see what you hit and run through it and wrap up.
Do we have numbers on him, measurements?
No testing numbers, just the height, weight, speed. So he's 6 feet and 1/2 inch, 203 pounds, and long arms, 33-inch arms.
Okay.
So definitely looks the part as far as size, like pretty prototype for an NFL safety.
Yeah.
Did you come away with any of these 4 players being, yes, this is our guy in the 3rd round?
No.
Yeah, me either.
But I did think out of the guys, and again, I didn't watch the FSU kid, but I did think out of the guys I watched, I'm like, man, I like Hickman.
Okay.
And Skinner is intriguing because he has the length and he just popped when I watched it.
Yeah. I think Skinner's the most likely to be in that range in the 3rd round.
And I know exactly how I would use him too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that helps. You really picture how he fits into your team and how you'd want to use him. If I had to guess how they went, I would say Skinner's probably that, 3rd round guy. I would say the second one selected would be Jammie Robinson. Someone's really going to like him, 4th roundish. I would say, I would say probably based on the tape, Scott and Hickman would be last for me. And probably, 5th round types for both of them. So, 5th round, I'd be excited about most of these guys. 3rd round, probably not as much.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Let us know if there's any other players you want us to watch, any mock drafts you want us to see for the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to have our own mock drafts as well coming up here on Locked On 49ers and continue to look at prospects that could be future San Francisco 49ers. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Croc and I back next time right here, Locked On 49ers.